Just to touch on something you talked about in the panel, but the language you having to deal with as doctors, and the two of you having done genre television have had to say some mouthfuls. Actually, what's the dumbest thing you've ever had to say? Well, you're all enjoying the show.
I know exactly what that one
Okay,
is.
cool.
Oh, I had to say, there was an episode in the first season of Stargate where and I tried desperately to get out of it, where I had to talk to this bad guy girl, and I had to say to her, because I was telling it for the audience's benefit, but never in the history of television has anyone ever had to say, you're like a queen bee. I was describing how they're birthed, and it was the most awful thing to this day I've ever had to say.
You do it so convincingly.
Oh, you know what? You see,
It was weird. I felt like a queen bee then.
Yeah.
Erica,
You know what? I have a whole list of strange things that I actually can't have anything that's coming to the forefront, but I would say that all the costumes I've had to wear have been interesting, and the most interesting one for me was I wore a catsuit, and it was so tight, and the boots were up so high that I couldn't bend over. I couldn't sit. So they built a platform for me to rest against, and I had to rest, and then so.
but you had the writing for your character was so much fun.
It was so fun.
She got to just spout off all this great
That's what
stuff.
I loved about her. She was so out there that nothing felt like really crazy. It was like, okay, you know. And I guess Lois would do it. I guess she would do it. I ended up as a stormtrooper into this and that, and so it was actually quite fun and refreshing to be that character that comes in at the end of the scene and goes, but like it was fun. I loved it.
What's the strangest thing you've had to do on Vampire?
Well, on Vampire, I think it might. I feel like my whole career, it's typically self-loathing actor thing to say, my whole career is a litany of me saying some terrible things. But it's mostly because of my lack of talent and execution.
We're working on honesty.
Rather than, but I feel like
there.
But I feel like I'm emerging from out of this nadir and into saving hope realm. I'm actually saying some things which kind of make sense to me.
Yeah.
Because the show is so well written and great.
Yeah. And lives hang in the balance.
That is true. Time to up your game.
Yeah.
Finally.
Michael, I have to ask, playing a dead guy who nobody can see, it must be a really uniquely isolating experience in that you can relate to them, but no one relates to you.
Well, I just want to clarify. He's not dead. He's just
resting.
He's in a coma.
He's pining for the field.
Now, okay?
Yeah, he's just taking a little hiatus. And actually, what's been actually funny, and these guys have had to listen to me go on about it, because I've said to Erica since the beginning, I really enjoy doing the flashbacks with you. Why? Because I actually get to interact as a human being with another human being. And I thought it was kind of cool at first, because it is kind of a very cool kind of character to be sort of wandering around and sort of observing from afar. And then after a while, you find that you're just kind of acting in a vacuum, and nobody's paying attention to you, and you're not able to play in the sandbox. And it actually starts to get to you after a while. So it got to the point where it was getting kind of frustrating doing the scenes, because it was like, you're talking to people that can't hear you, they don't really react or respond to what you say. What you say doesn't matter. You're not really solving anything. You're able to occasionally talk to the occasional spirit, but then again, you're still not able to solve anything.
The delicious thing about all of this is that his frustration is absolutely appropriate, like for the character.
Yeah.
So it reads beautifully, all this anxiety. So they've built these parameters within which he's sort of in the proverbial straitjacket. Of not being able to communicate, but it reads so beautifully and works so well on the show, and you do notice like the pure relaxation of you when you get to go in and play with the other kids.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it also what it does too. It also lends itself to a bit more of a sardonic sense of humor that ekes out, even if it's not in the words. I'll just come out with some stuff that, because you get kind of frustrated, you feel like you want to just sound off a little bit. Nobody's going to hear you. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to say this. Screw you.
So it's also liberating.
Isolating and liberating. Yeah, it is a little bit method. That's the thing. It's become sort of its own. It's getting into my bones a little bit, which I'm a little bit kind of going, I don't like that too much. But it's effective that way too.
Now the other side of it is relating to him and not relating to him. Like, do you have trouble ever like sort of looking through him and continuing on your stuff?
Yes. We've had a lot of moments where it's hard to pull it together because you're so focused and you're in some sense of some form of grief. That's my character's always in some form of grief. And then all of a sudden I'll be doing something, and then it's like, he just kind of pops up there, and he's like right there. Alex.
We did one where I was, poor thing, I was like half an inch from her face because they wanted me hidden beside her, and I'm looking right at her, like this. That close away.
The Bergman shot.
And I'm talking to her.
Yes.
And she's
Alex,
supposed to
you're-
pretend.
Shot.
Listen to me. It was like that, and
The camera's over there, and she just could not keep it together. And I don't blame her at all.
So hard.
It's a test.
Yeah.
One more thing I have to ask you, you mentioned the prosthetics and been on a few sets and seen how real these things are now. Did you ever get sort of totally grossed out?
Only when I watch it. Because when we're doing it, you know what it is. But when I watch it on television, even having been doing it, then when I see it, I go, ah! I still, like, the first surgery we did, I watched it the other day, and I was going, ah! When the suturing was happening, I was like, kind of like...
There's something also too, there's a mastery that happens in the soundscape that's really sort of undervalued, I think, a lot, and not spoken about nearly enough, is that when you add those sounds of, like realigning a femur, or going in and like hearing the tear of tissue, or the suturing, or like listening to the sound of a blade cutting flesh, it just adds this whole other dimension which was nothing to do with the universe.
The
that we
drill in the cranium.
Oh,
you don't even
yeah.
see it. You don't even see it.
No,
All of a
it's just
sudden-
the suggestion of it.
The sound, do that.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing you talk about it, it's making
Oh,
me
yeah,
shudder.
but my father, who knew that was me on the table and knew that wasn't actually happening, was going, oh!
Yeah.
Not the kind of thing you want to hear.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing this, and how great for me to be able to share.
I know. Thank
with
you.
you.
Yeah, you can't
No.
escape us, actually. Yeah.
That's right.
So far, you win interviews because we gotta see that.
You know what would be
Yeah,
magic
yeah.
right now? It'd be magic if we could walk to the window and someone had painted the outline of you there, like with your That's incredible.
I'll be
High-fiving
I'll
us.
be doing that later.